unfortunately, this year we've had a whole bunch of disasters, especially airplane crashes, which have been super worrying. And it's been really sad to see people losing their loved ones and all of the controversy against some of the airplane manufacturers, etc. So today I wanted to talk about the topic about who pays when things go wrong, because things do go wrong. You could end up in a situation where you have a construction problem and a collapse of a building that costs lives of workers. You could end up in a situation where there's a fire and there's damage. You could end up in a situation where there's some IT fraud or hacking due to negligence in relation to a particular system. So there are so many types of liabilities that you could end up with. And the question is, you need to dissect what kind of liability that is. So in some cases, it could be contractual liability, where there's been a breach of contract. So one party promised something to the other and it didn't happen and there was loss or damage caused as a result. There could be tortious liability, when you've done an act causing damage or harm under civil law, as it's also called, because the concept of tort per se is not common under civil law, which is what we have in the UAE. And you could have kind of other kinds and forms of liability: criminal liability, vicarious liability, strict liability when it comes to things like hazardous materials and aspects where the environment is in question. Now, what typically happens? Now, who is responsible? So if you look at Boeing and if you look at the airplane crashes in the past, etc., obviously there is a huge element where the company is responsible. There could be its directors and its key officers that may be responsible. There could be that particular person who, say, perpetrated a fraud or effectively mismanaged a team or mismanaged a project, that could also be liable. And in many cases, in most of these cases where big sums are involved, there is obviously insurers and insurance involved. So you would end up in a position where you might have a claim where the claim is really paid out by the insurers. So whenever I do a contract or whenever I do something very meaningful, like setting up a facility or buying a facility or a big factory or an industrial project, or even some of the smaller projects which are very IT driven and very centric towards any mistakes or bugs that might creep into this, we always look at the insurance policies and how robust are those insurance policies, what do they cover, who are the co-insured, and what is the quantum of damage, quantum of claim, etc. that can be covered. But do rest assured, there's always responsibility that lies in a situation when a disaster occurs, when lives are lost, etc. And there is always somebody who needs to take the fall, the blame, and that is the allocation of risk, allocation of responsibility, and obviously allocation of payouts when there are consequences. So that's it from me this week. Thank you so much for watching Think Tank. I hope you found that helpful.